Hello, my name is Jeff Cruz, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the Google Geo tools and thinking about those in reference to the power of place. Just a little bit about me. I am a technology integration specialist. I'm a classroom teacher. I was a middle school teacher for several years, technology coordinator, and now I am one of the co founders of Beyond the Chalk, which is a local company out of Missoula area. And we work with schools like yourselves to help integrate technology. So we're going to go through several tools today, and I hope you have a chance to enjoy this presentation, and hopefully you just also discover some new tools. So we're going to start off by just kind of talking about perspective. And I really think this quote kind of sums it all up. And this is from one of the astronauts aboard the space shuttle. And as they look back at Earth from space, this is what they said. Said the first day or so, we all pointed to our countries. The third or fourth day, we were pointing to our continents. By the fifth day, we were aware of only one Earth. And I really think that's a powerful statement that really rings true for all of us. Is that when we can step back from our own perspective, from our own biases, and we can look at something differently, we begin to see the world differently. And when we can do that, I think what happens is we begin to, kind of change our reality, kind of bend our reality a little bit. And I think that, quite honestly, we all need to do that more and more. So we're going to look at this from a perspective. All right, so let's jump into this next slide here, and I am going to start with a test. Now, I apologize. I know some of you have test anxiety, but I promise you, it's going to be fine. And we're just going to jump right in. So here are the directions. On the next slide, there are several symbols. You will have between 5 and 10 seconds to memorize as many of the symbols as possible. Now, since we're doing this virtually, no pausing the video, okay? So I'm not watching you, but I'm just going to, Scouts honor, that kind of thing. We're going to have to make sure that you just don't pause it, and you'll understand why here in a second. So memorize as many symbols as possible. On your marks, get set, go. No pausing. Okay. No, going back in the video. So think about this. How many do you remember? So if I were to put this in front of you, like as a piece of paper, or if you have a scratch piece of paper sitting next to you, see if you can remember all of the different symbols that represent each letter. So just give you a little bit of time to do that. You can pause this video if you'd like. See if you can figure out how many, or you can kind of write down as many as you can remember here. So I'm just going to give you a little bit more time to do that. I'm going to do some nervous talking, to fill the void. That was my teacher's silent time. And now I'm going to say stop. Okay, so if you remembered 3 of them, that's not bad. If you remembered 5, you're doing really well. Now, if you remembered all of them, well, that would be incredibly impressive. Typically, what happens with this particular test is we get the first, at least 3 or 4 or 5. But then when we get to that second row of items, we begin to say, I think it was this, I think it was that. And I want to change your perspective a little bit. I'm going to show you how you can memorize these shapes in just a matter of seconds. And you're thinking, no way you can do that. But I wouldn't lie to you because I'm a teacher, right? Teachers don't lie to their kids. So here is how we change our perspective. What if I showed you this? So you see, what happens is we look at something as we tend to focus in on these fine details. And when we can step back from it all, what we can begin to do is we can begin to see the world from a different perspective. And so that little activity right there, that was designed to help show you that, it's really important that as teachers, we take and think about how we can change our perspective, or better yet, change our students' perspective so they can see the world from a different point of view. So that's a little activity there. Here's the presentation link here. So if you want to pause this presentation and go ahead and write this down. If you have an iPad or a mobile phone, a smartphone, you can scan that code there and it will take you to this presentation as well. So this is the Power of Place presentation. I'll pause for just a second. I'll let you go ahead and grab that, and then we'll move forward. Okay, let's jump into the next slide. So images tell stories. There are so many amazing images that we can find out there in the world, based on these satellites that have taken imagery of the entire planet for actually several decades now. And those images can help us tell stories. We can look at human impact. For example, this slide right here shows some human impact there. This slide over here shows the Aral Sea, which is a very well-known kind of ecological catastrophe where they began to divert water from this Aral Sea here, and it went from this size here, and it shrunk down to about 20% of its original size, which is this in about a 20-year period. We can see using some different image bands, we can actually find and see differences in vegetation as well as other things. We can see nature, how nature has kind of shaped the earth with this alluvial fan here. And then we can also see how man has shaped the earth. This happens to be Palm Island out of Saudi Arabia. And if you're curious, you can search it up on Google Earth and find that image. So we're going to use imagery today to help tell stories. And my hope here is that I'm going to show you a couple of tools that you can use to create stories. And from this presentation, you can take and can begin to engage your students in this kind of geo storytelling experience here. So let's jump into our first one. I love this tool. This one is a super powerful tool that you can use to help students learn more about the world in which they live. So this particular animated GIF here, this is looking at Madagascar. And you notice the countdown there on the top right. So it starts at 1984. And what it does is it shows you changes over that landscape up to 2016. Now, I want you to pay attention. This river running through here, the first thing you'll notice is that this river just keeps changing course. You look at this stream bed in here, you notice right in this area, see how much it changes? That's why, creek bottoms, river bottoms are so wide because there's these oxbows and different things because those streams over time will actually shift and move. The other thing I want you to notice is the amount of vegetation at the start of this particular animation, and then the lack of vegetation. So you notice up here, just at the top of the river here, you see how that vegetation changes. So we can use imagery to tell stories about landscape and how we've impacted. The same thing happens down here on the bottom as well. We can see some deposits here, some sediment deposits coming out of this stream. So I'm guessing that you're going to see more sediment as the years count down here, because as you decrease the amount of vegetation, you increase the amount of exposed soil, which then actually increases the amount of sediment that then is brought into the river system, and which point at the mouth of that river is going to deposit that sediment out into the ocean. So this is called the Google Earth Engine time lapse. So let's go to the next slide here. Now this is actually a kind of collaboration. So USGS has been putting satellites up in space since 1970s. This is actually using Landsat imagery. This particular time lapse is here. The Landsat satellites I think there's 8 now, and they've been launched over an extended period of time, and they've collected imagery for many, many years. So this satellite produces what we consider to be low resolution Earth imagery. It's about 3-meter pixel resolution, which means it just don't get to the fine details of it. But what it allows us to do is get a glimpse of the Earth over time. When we take and we combine that with the Earth Engine, so this Google Earth Engine is an incredibly powerful matrix of computers that have taken this imagery and they've actually compiled it over time. So what time-lapse has done, and I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide, is they've taken this imagery of the Earth and they've found tiles. So what happens is these images come in tiles. They found the best tile for each area for each year from 1984 to 2000. I think they're up to 2018 now. And look at that frame size. Each frame is 1.7 terapixels of global images. So they collect this new imagery about every 2 weeks. Earth Engine combines the images from the entire year to construct a pixel image that is cloud free of the entire Earth's surface. So what you're seeing is that an image of the Earth for each year, and then as we take and we can animate those years together, and from that we can create a pretty amazing imagery. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump into this Google Earth time lapse. So I'm going to switch screens here, and I'm going to jump out of this presentation. Sorry. And we're going to jump into this time-lapse Earth Engine. So you'll notice that that's right down here on the bottom. You can see where that this link is here. You just have to click on that and copy that into your tab. If I click on that guy right here, what you'll notice is that I can zoom in and out just by scrolling out of my mouth. I'm scrolling with my mouse, sorry. And you notice as I scroll out, I get a much larger vision or picture of the Earth right here. So I'm going to hide this real quick so I can see that. So you notice as this counts right here, so I've got a pause button right here. You notice it's counting down, so it goes to 2018, so from 1984. You can see subtle changes here over time. Now, if I want, what I can do is I can actually come over here and I can search for places. So let's just go to Las Vegas. How about Las Vegas, Nevada? Now let's just take a look and see how Las Vegas, Nevada, has changed over time. So I'm actually going to pause that. I'm going to come back here to 1984. Okay, let's just take a look and see. I'm just going to kind of position this a little bit. Now, if I just go ahead and hit play, watch the change over time for Las Vegas, Nevada. So you notice how that changes. Look at all the changes that are going on there. And what I also want you to notice as I let this play through a second time, notice over here the changes in this reservoir. So it's pretty steady now, but look at that. You see how that's kind of gone down over time. So really it gives us a nice snapshot into the just changes over time. So I'm going to come out here. We're going to go to Bolivia. And we're going to take a look at Bolivia here. So again, we're going to just zoom all the way out and zoom all the way in. And again, we're going to pause that. And I'm going to just kind of go ahead and back out just a little bit here. I'm going to pause my time lapse. Sorry. Come back into here. I went a little bit too far with my mouse. So I'm going to just come back in here, Bolivia. And going to jump out. You'll notice that we have some glacial activity here that we can check out as well. So there's Bolivia. So now again, if I take this in 1984, I just want you to watch the change over time. So I'm going to go ahead and play that. And you notice how that whole process of deforestation has occurred inside of 2018 here. So if I go back to, again, we're going to pause this when I get to 2018 here. And go ahead and pause that. So you notice that change over time. So if we go to 1984 versus 2018, there's a tremendous amount of deforestation going on there. And we can come over to the Amazon and see that as well. So just lots of opportunity for you to look and use that imagery to figure out where you are, figure out what's happened in your area. Now it'd be super easy to come back out all the way out here to the U.S. and we come out here to the U.S. We come into Montana and we take a look at the Flathead Valley. Now the Flathead Valley is really pretty easy to find because we can just zoom in here too, and we can find that good old lake right there. It's a little bit off right now. So let me see if I can rotate this. No, can't rotate that guy. Jump in here, and we're going to take a look at this area right here. I'm going to jump into here. I was all the way down here at Yellowstone Lake. I'm not sure why, but if we come back up here to Flathead Lake, we see the Bitterroot Mountains right here. We see the Missoula Valley, and this is the Mission Valley right here. So we come into here, we can kind of zoom into this area here. And again, we can go ahead and jump into 1984. A little bit different imagery there, but we can go ahead and run this, and we can see changes over time that have occurred here in this area here. So what I want you to notice I want you to notice over here in this area, notice all of the logging that's gone on in that area right there. You see all that logging? That's at the Swan Valley right there. So just, again, powerful imagery to help us kind of have a different view of the Earth. So that's time lapse. I would highly recommend you just jump in, pause the video, jump in for 15 minutes and just play a little bit. And you'll notice over here on the right or left-hand side, excuse me, that you've got some different areas that Earth Engine has featured as just places where you can see changes over time here within this Landsat imagery. You have an overview map over here. You can zoom in, zoom out over here. Notice there's some case studies that you can go to. So pretty powerful tool that you can use for your students. So go ahead and pause the video and play for about 5 minutes, and then we'll jump into the next section. We're going to jump back into the second tool that I'd like to show you. And most of you are familiar with Google Earth. Now, Google Earth came out in the early 2000s, and if you remember, it was a standalone programs, which meant that you had to install it onto your computer. Typically, it was a very bandwidth intensive program, and but it was super powerful. And Google didn't want to lose the power of Google Earth, but what they did want to do is they wanted to make it a web-based application. And so, you think about the number of Chromebooks that are in schools now, the number of web applications. Google just knew that that was the way that everything was heading. So they actually converted the old Google Earth into the new Google Earth. So the new Google Earth is a web-based application. So it's just earth.google.com that will get you to the new Google Earth. One of the things to remember is that some of you think, oh, I wish they had this tool, I wish they had this tool. So what Google had to do is they actually had to go backwards in order to go forward. So they're starting to put these other tools back, and I'd like to show you some of those pieces today. So let's jump into, I'll go to the next slide here just real quick. So we're going to talk about creating projects inside of Google Earth. But before we do that, what I'd like to do is I'd like to just kind of show you some of the new features inside of Google Earth. I'm going to come back to this slide. Notice I have the menu and different tools over here on the left. So I've created these just these text boxes here to show you what each one is. So menu, search, Voyager. I'll show you that one. That's pretty cool. Feeling lucky. We were lucky enough, pardon the pun, to actually meet the individual who designed this tool right here. He's about 19 or 20 years old, or at least he looks that way to me. And he designed this tool as a potential feature, and he was lucky enough to get it in. Project, map style, and they've added some measuring tools that they had in the old Google Earth as well. So let's do this. Let's jump into Google Earth, and let's just kind of take a look around here. So I've got earth.google.com, and if you want to put /web, you can do that as well. And I'm going to jump into Google Earth here. And again, you notice over on the left side, we have our tools, and we have our map. Again, we can zoom in, zoom out, do different things here. I can move this around just a little bit to show you that down here, we have some of our tools that we saw in the old Earth. We can take and we can move the Earth around if we want and drop it and do different things with it. We can actually just simply click on it and move it around, use our mouse, scroll over, scroll in, scroll out, to create different or to navigate the map here. We can actually take and figure out where we are. So if you have Google Earth and you allow it to know your location, it can jump in and it can say, oh, I know exactly where you are, Jeff. You're in Lola, Montana. And whoops, it's a little bit off, but it's not too bad. So I'm somewhere in that general vicinity. So, so your tools are over here as well. Let's take a look at these tools here. So if we start with the menu, notice that we've got the different tools here. We can go to our settings if we want, and that'll give us some different information. We can fly in, we can change the speed a little bit, change our display settings. This was something that we found in the old Google Earth. We can actually take and increase the cache. If you do that, it's going to take more RAM, but it's going to allow things to load faster, change our units of measure, and a couple of other things here as well. So that's where your settings are. This is just our search menu right here. So if I want, I can search for individual place. I can search for something like Glacier National Park. So if I click there, Glacier National Park, it's going to say, oh, I know where that is. It's right over here. One of the things you'll notice is that not only does it search for the park, it also kind of brings up these panels here. And you notice that these panels give us a little bit of additional information. So if I click on that, it's going to say, oh, well, let's take a look at Glacier National Park, Jeff. Here's some information about it. Here are some place marks. Here are some things that other people search for. And it kind of gives you that information right there. This is a slide carousel, so I can simply kind of navigate through these images, beautiful images here of Glacier National Park. And just kind of look at some of these pieces here. So the search menu is super easy. We can search for addresses. We can search for all kinds of things here. So you notice I've searched for some different things here as specific addresses. So that's just the search. Again, works similar to the search previously. I can close these panels over here if I don't want them to be in the way anymore. Move my image back down, and let's go on to the next one, Voyager. So these are amazing. So these are really just stories that people have created that have been vetted by Google that you can actually jump into. So we're going to go into the education piece here. You notice that I've got some different subcategories. And let's look at some triangular structures right here. So if I click on this, what it'll do is it'll kind of open this splash page here, right? It gives me a little bit of information, and then I have the opportunity to explore. And what you'll notice is that it kind of creates this panel over here, and it takes me into these different places. So it's kind of like creating a story. And what I hope you're starting to do right now is you're starting to think about, wow, what if we could get students to do this? So again, you notice right here that it's got the Bank of China, and you notice the different geometric shapes right there, the triangles. Down here, I have some arrows, so I can go to my next piece here. And what Google Earth does is it says, oh, I know, let's go to the next slide. Now we're going to go to the Eiffel Tower, and it allows us to take and attach meaning to a place on the earth. So Eiffel Tower is a very well-known structure, but you think about all of the triangles that occur inside of the Eiffel Tower. And what you'll notice they've done over here on the panels is they've taken and they've created a slide carousel, so I can kind of look through the slide carousel here, right, and see these different structures. It's also giving me some important information. Again, I'll show you how to create these in just a little bit. I can learn more about the underlying framework. So I can click here. It'll take me open a new tab, and it will take me to another page that explains this in a little bit more detail. So again, there's 5 panels to this. This is the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas. I can jump in here, and again, it's going to zoom me down, and there's that triangular shape right there. So that is the Voyager piece. Again, it truly is worth looking at. If I come back over here and I go back to Voyagers, I don't remember how many there are now. I know there are over 200 different images or different voyages that you can kind of look through and check out. It's got some Lewis and Clark stuff here, the early explorers, lots of different ways that they're using place to tell stories about something, whether it's science or math or ecosystems, or just all kinds of stories. So I encourage you to maybe even pause the video and explore those a little bit. This next tool I really like, and I like it for a couple of reasons. One, you never know what you're going to get. This is like rolling the dice. We just left Vegas there, so I guess it'd be similar to that. So now my Earth isn't where it should be here, so I'm going to try and double click on this Earth view here, and it's just going to recenter it back to where it was. So I just came down here on the bottom, double clicked on my Earth, and it reorients it so that north is up, south is down. All right, I'm feeling lucky. So basically it's rolling the dice, and it says, oh, well, let's take you to a place. And this just happens today to take us to Princeton. And it gives us some information about Princeton here. If I come down here, I can click on it. It's going to give me some information, different things. What's cool about it, if I hit that I'm feeling lucky again, watch what happens. Oh, I'm going to go to a Scottish restaurant here. So it just takes me to these different places somewhere on Earth, and each time I click on that, it's going to take me to a different place. What I really think is cool is that as a teacher, you can do that, kind of that icebreaker activity. First thing in the morning, kids come in, let's learn about a new place. this is Ireland. And from here, what we can do is we can kind of learn some more information here. We can zoom out, right? And we can kind of look at the landscape and see different things. See how is it similar to our, to where we live? How is it different? Those types of things. So that's I'm feeling lucky right there. I'm going to show you just these other two down here, just real quick. Again, I'm going to come back down to here and go back to the United States, go back to our area here, click and hold on that. Now I'm going to show you the bottom one first. This is a measure and distance tool, right? So if I click on this, it's going to say here's your starting points. If I click somewhere in Missoula, and I can take and click somewhere else. And notice it's not just a line. I can actually create several segments of a line right here. And if I want, I can close that shape. And what it's going to do is going to give me the area as well. So the perimeter is 308 miles. The area is 5,201 square miles. So I can clear that just by starting new. So that's kind of a nice tool there that allows you to take and maybe integrate some math into your Google Earth experience. This map style right here, this is I feel like this is almost under settings, but I can actually take and clean up my map. So right now I have everything turned on. I can turn custom things on, different borders on. There's two different things. You notice we flew into that triangular thing. The 3D buildings were turned on. That's how we were getting those 3D renditions of the Earth. We can turn on animated clouds, or we can actually turn on grid lines as well. So that's just how you're setting up your view there in Google Earth. So take a minute, play, try out those tools there, and we'll come back and we'll get started. We're going to jump into a tool that I believe is very powerful for lots of reasons that I'll get into here in a second. But this is the what we call projects. So Google Earth has in the past year created a projects part to Google Earth, and so I'm going to show you that at this point now. And just just to make sure you understand, there are some links to resources under these slides. So under slide 12 and 13 here, we've got links to resources that'll take you through the how-tos. So if you're struggling with how to build a project, this is the link you want to click on here. So I'm going to jump back into Google Earth here. I'm going to start here in the Montana area. And again, this is my story, right? So you can make it whatever you want. And that's the power of this. And think about turning your students loose and creating stories about maybe place and what place means to them, because we all have this connection to place. Maybe it's our home, maybe it's a special fishing place, although kids are not going to give you that special fishing hole, or maybe it's a place where you've traveled as a family that has special meaning to you. Those types of things, we can do all of that inside of Google Earth using this projects tool. So I'm going to jump over here to this icon right here called projects. Now, if I click on that, what you're going to see is I have several projects already created. I'm going to reduce that there so you can't see all of these different projects going on. But you'll notice that I've got a couple projects going here that I've already created. So we're just going to start with a new project, and I'll take you through the process of that. Remember, this is pretty simple. Once you start a project or your students start a project, it's a pretty straightforward experience here. So I'm going to click on New Project. Now, the first thing I want you to notice that this project is created inside of Google Drive. Why is that important? Because if a project is inside of Google Drive, the sharing and the storage of that project becomes much easier. If you remember the old Google Earth, you had to create KML or KMZ files. You couldn't share them. You had to download them and then send them off, those types of things. So really important. We're not going to worry about these files at this point. We're just going to come in here and we're going to start by creating a project in Google Drive. So it's going to save it in Google Drive right there, untitled project, and we're going to call this SKC Digital Tribal Day. I'm going to say this is my presentation. All right. And we're just going to keep it really simple. But again, this is where your narrative goes right here. And I'm going to go ahead and add for a new feature, right? I want to make a full screen slide here. So that full screen slide is going to be my kind of my introduction. That's my splash page. So I'm going to click on that. And say, all right, let's call this I'm just going to do this. We're going to abbreviate SKC digital. I call this day. I'm just going to call it digital day. All right. Again, I can put a narrative on here. This is my presentation. And I have a background image now. So I click on that. I come in. I can actually upload a file from my drive if I want, or I can just come out here and do it. So, Salish. I didn't spell Salish Kootenai right, but here we go. So we're going to maybe, oh, there we go, college, education, leadership. I'm going to select that image right there, and it's going to throw that image into that presentation. Now, what I can do is I can come in, I can zoom in, zoom out, do different things, and set my view right here. I can come in here to the heading. I can change some different things here, which I can lay the map down if I want. I can do different things, put a latitude, longitude on there, that type of thing. So lots of opportunities to change how that looks and where that goes. There's also, you can't really see it down here, but there's a tutorial down here that allows you to actually watch a tutorial within that piece. So there's that piece of my presentation. I'm going to come back now. What you're going to notice is that here is my SKC digital day. I can come down here to present and watch what happens. Oh, there it is. That graphic doesn't look very good right there. Here's my table of contents. Here's my, if I had more slides, it would actually allow me to take you through a series of slides. So see, it's super easy to go in and create this. I changed this image here, but we're going to just jump in and move on. So my first feature. So I'm going to search to add a place. So I am going to click on Pablo, Montana. All right, so we're going to click here, and it's going to take me into Pablo, Montana. And you notice I can see several things here. So it's going to spin just a little bit. I actually want to look at that Salish Kootenai College here because that's kind of where we started. I'm going to double click on my map. Oops, no, I don't want to do that. Here, I'm going to take and turn my map just a little bit. I did that. Now, for those of you that are wondering how I got that to go up and down like that, if you click and hold, or if you hold down your shift key first, and then you click and hold your mouse, you can get that map to do some pretty cool things. So I'm just going to kind of come out here. I'm going to, oops, click on down. I'm going to drag that down. Again, hold my shift. I'm going to hold my shift key, click and hold my mouse. And then I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here to Salish Kootenai College. And notice that when I've got that piece right there, all right, come over here. And I can come over here and actually add to project. All right, so there it is, add to this project. I can edit the place. I can click on save. And now that's been added to this piece right here. So I can actually create all these different places here that you can go to. So now let's go ahead and back to present here. And you're going to notice that I've got my table of contents. But now when I click on this next button right here, here's my piece right here, right? I've got my navigation over here. If I want, I can actually look at all of these different pieces and kind of go from there. So what's really nice about that is it gives me that splash page initially, and it allows me to put in all kinds of things. I can add a place mark. Excuse me. I can draw a line or shape if I want and put that into my digital presentation as well. So super powerful way of creating these different projects. Again, this is inside of Google Drive. That's an important piece. I can change that. I can also share a project. So think about how you might have groups of students creating these different projects here, right? So they're working together to create these place marks here that you can use to, or they can use to tell a story. So again, the fact that it's inside of Google Drive allows us that opportunity to share with other individuals as well. You got some different pieces right here. I can copy, do different things that way. So I would highly encourage you to go in and check this out because it's super cool. One of the things you can also do here, you notice I have my edit. I can come back here and I can edit. I can delete that feature right here. I can also take and I can just move it. So I can move these different pieces around here, which allows me to kind of reorganize, sort. If I said, oh, I should have put that one in first, just simply click, hold, and drag. You see these two lines that come up here. And from there, you can take and you can move those to different places there. So I want you to take, or I'd like you to take a couple of minutes and just work through some of those pieces there. Again, I know this is just a quick way or just a quick tutorial, but what I wanted to do is I just wanted to give you a sense of what's possible. And hopefully what you're beginning to do is you're thinking about, wow, I could use this for language arts. I'll throw out a site that you should check out. It's called Google Lit Trips. I'll actually pause the video and go to that page so you can see that. Jerome Berg, he's an English teacher in California that started creating literature trips, and he started using Google Earth to use the Earth and places to help tell that story. So he's put those stories into a place on the Earth, and they're super powerful. So I'll pause this video. I'll let you play a little bit. We'll talk about Google Lit Trips, and then we'll go to our third tool. As I promised you, I told you I'd talk a little bit about Google Lit Trips, so I've added a slide to this presentation that you should see. And if I go to the website, what you're going to notice is that, again, this is Jerome Berg. It's a little bit, it's kind of hard to kind of figure out where you're at. You can search by alphabetical titles, by titles by grade level. So if I jump into a 6-8 title right here, I can come in and look at this particular lit trip here. And notice that this is Jerome Berg right here. And what I can do is I can take, and I should be able to click on this, and Long Walk to Water. Click on it and find that piece. Oh, here we go. So we request a lit trip over here, and it's going to jump in. So I have to put in my own email, configure, select the title, and from that, I can come in and I can look at all of the different titles. There's a ton of books in here. And you put in your title and request that lit trip. As long as you have put in your correct email address, you're going to receive an email and a Gmail fairly shortly, or sorry, an email there fairly shortly after you put that in. And it's going to have a link for that lit trip. So really amazing stuff that Jerome has put together for the education community. So that is Google Earth. I know we went through that quickly, but again, I think it's an incredibly powerful tool that you can use to find out more about the world in which we live and help students also discover those special places in the world. I'm going to jump into tool number 3 now. So this one, I think, even takes it to another level. I think most of you have probably heard of Google Expeditions. If you haven't, they are worth looking at. Using the VR goggles, you can put a phone in there, and it creates that kind of 3D tour that you can, experience the world through. So if you haven't experienced Google Expeditions, it's worth looking into. Tool number 3 is called the Google Poly Tour Creator. So if you haven't experienced, if you haven't checked out Google Expeditions, we've got a new tab up here. So basically, Google Expeditions is a way of taking and imagery and putting it into a viewer, and that viewer then is used, like this young kid right here is using, viewers used to kind of create this 3-dimensional experience. The cool thing about Google Expeditions is that you as a teacher have the opportunity to control where they go. So again, worth looking into if you haven't spent much time doing that. PolyTour kind of takes this to the next level. So a lot of you, or some of you that have used Google Expeditions, say, well, I wish they had an expedition or a tour of this place. Maybe it's the reservation. Maybe you want to take and look at these special places around the reservation. Maybe you want students to create their own PolyTours that will take them from one place to the next. And so Tour Creator, what it does, and that's linked right here on the bottom of this presentation slide, is it takes me into a a new tool. It's called poly.google.com/creator/tours. Now, what you're going to notice is that I have several that I've already either created or copied, but you'll notice that I have these are all labeled as draft because I haven't created or I haven't made these public yet. There are two things that I can do. I can actually create a brand new tour from scratch, or I can come out here and I can say, let's just look at some of the templates. So I can actually take any of these templates that have already been created and simply click on it. It's going to copy that tour and I can make it my own. So I can go in and I can change any of the text here that I want. I can change categories, any of those things. Now down below here, what you'll notice that these are the different places that I can go. And not only are we looking at, so this isn't just imagery, this is 360-degree imagery. All I'm doing is I'm taking and I'm pulling this around. I also want you to notice a couple things. We have some different images right here, and these are what we call, these are call outs, right? That allow us to find additional information. I'll move this down out of the way here a little bit, and it tells you what the main gate is made out of. You also notice that I can add some audio as well. So lots of potential here for using Google Poly in your classroom to also create stories. The difference is we're using 360-degree imagery inside of Poly. Inside of Google Earth, you're using primarily the two-dimensional imagery right here. So let's jump back from this template right here. And I'm going to come back here and I'm just going to start by creating a new tour. And I want to show you how that works. I'm going to click on that button. You want your students to start with a new tour. And we're going to call this, let's just call this tour around, around Montana. Oops, one too many A's in there. And I can put a description. This is my tour, just in order to save time because I do not type very fast. I can put it into a category, objects, places, and scenes. I'm just going to call places and scenes right here. And I can put in a cover photo. So if I want, I can come out here again. It's going to come in here. I can select an image, and that allows me to select that image right from my desktop. So, and then come down here and I create. So click on create that. And now I get to add a scene. So you notice that that's what's cool about this is I can come in here now. I can search for Pablo. And we're going to put MT. And let's just see where that takes us here. Oh, there we go. So it takes us, you notice that we have, there we go. So there's Pablo. I'm going to jump in here. And now I'm looking for street view imagery. So I zoom into an area. Here's Salish Kootenai College. I'm guessing there's some 360 imagery here, but I don't know. Only know after I drag Pegman, I'm just clicking and holding and dragging Pegman here. And I'm just going to take and I'm going to drag him maybe right in here. I'm going to drop him on the road. And let's see what happens. Oh, look at that. So it looks like I have not a great piece of imagery here. So I'm just going to take him. Well, let's take him down here and drag him right onto that corner right there. And let's see what that gets us. See? And you notice here that I've got several. I can actually take and use these arrows here to take and take me through here. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this scene right here. I click on add scene. And now that scene is added to my tour. So this is one scene right here. So this is, I'm just going to go ahead and say SKC. Here's the drive. I can add a description, credits, and this is where I can go ahead and add this ambient audio. So this might be, if I want birds chirping, something like that, I can actually add that audio in. I can add my own narration, or better yet, students can add their own narration. I can also put a point of interest. So if I click on this point of interest right here, I can move that. Maybe I put it up here and it's facing the Mission Mountains here. So let's just do this. Let's come over here and I click on that, take my point of interest, and and I can describe this and add an image if I want to as well, do different things. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that image in there like that. I can add another point of interest, or I can come down here and I can add another scene. So I'm going to click on here. I'm going to go ahead and come up over here, and I can just zoom out here now that I'm close to where I want to be. Maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. Oh, that's still Palo Alto, Pablo, Montana. Let's just do a search for that. So it took me all the way back to, and I'm going to come into the Kerr Dam over here. And let's see if there's any imagery at all of this dam, of this power plant. So it looks like maybe not so much. Oh, see, so this happens if you don't have imagery, if there's no imagery around that area, it's just not going to light up, right? Or you're not going to see those blue images here. So we're going to zoom out just a little bit more. There you go. And now you can see, so there's a point right there. Let's just check that one out. Oh, right at the end of that. That's a beautiful image, isn't it? So let's just say we want to take this image right here, and we're going to go ahead and add that scene. And that scene we're going to call Flathead Lake. Point Salish Park. There we go. Flathead, add some credits. I can add some different scenes right here. And it's not a perfect image. You see the seams right here. So some of your imagery is better than others. But this will do for this particular activity here. So again, super easy to add, not only add scenes, but remember inside of scenes, I can add points of interest, and narrations, ambient sounds. I like to actually add an ambient sound like birds or something like that, water, those types of things, because it gives it a different effect. So that is worth checking out. And yeah, it's super awesome, super cool. And I think it has a lot of potential in terms of kids using it to create stories. So I'm going to jump back into my presentation here, and I've pretty much reached the end of my presentation time. I really do hope that you have an opportunity to check out these different tools. I know I went through those very quickly, but I also feel like if you have the video, you can just jump back in at any time and go back through those. And I've left you some resources as well. If you need to contact me, my Twitter information is right down there, Cruiser Tech. I'm also cruisertech@gmail.com if you have questions for me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. I hope you have a great day. Thank you very much for watching this presentation, and I hope you found some things that you can use within your presentation here. So have a great rest of your day. I hope you guys are enjoying your virtual conference, and we will chat with you later.